Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. With April Mahoney Brains, how are you? You're at the spot. You're back at your favorite location, the best podcast on the planet. This is the place where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Today we are with Dr. Kim Tranquada. We're going to talk about the amazing work that she does and the selfless work that she does on global and also rural areas when it comes to medicine. There's such a need there. And she is transitioning from working with veterans to really give her life, her passion, and her joy to this population. I'm going to ask her, why does she want to put herself back in the thralls of that? You know, sometimes people, they don't get their flowers. So we want to give it to her now because it's costly. She could go and be this great surgeon or medical doctor or emergency medical doctor at John Hopkins University and make a ton of money driving a Mercedes. But no, what she wants to do is she wants to step back and she wants to give back. So I want to ask her, what is her motivation and inspiration, and also how we can help her and support her in those efforts. So let's welcome her to the show. We're going to call her Dr. T. How you doing, Dr. T?
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you, April. Thank you for inviting me on the show. And I'm really honored to be able to chat with you and your brains.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And again, like I said, for the work that you do. People don't, I don't know, they just don't give doctors, nurses, and teachers, in my opinion, the love that they deserve. Because you could have been a chef, you could have been a plumber, you could have been, worked for Tesla. You could have done a whole lot of stuff. But what you decided to do is go to school, spend hours and a whole bunch of money, and then pour that into individuals to save lives. Now, you're an emergency room doctor. That's a lot of trauma that you see from the onset. Tell us a little bit about your experience and how you found yourself in that space.
Wow. A life is lived one step at a time. We'll start there. And you certainly need to have a vision of where you want to be, but you also need to just travel there one step at a time. So I was a child, an immigrant child from Guyana. I moved to the Bronx when I was only 7 years old. And sometime by the time I was in high school, I was starting to ponder what future could I have? We were from a very working class family. My dad was a doorman. He single parent. I had my two brothers. The world was not there for me. I was going to have to make what I was going to make in the world. And even as a child, you look at what you have and you say, what can I make with what I have? And I knew that I was good at school. I loved to study. I was I had a strong connection with people. I wanted to do something that was going to allow me to always interact with people and to help people, even at that young age. And I thought, why not try for something, even if it seems so far out of reach? If I don't make it, I'll get closer to something else. Really, I had to believe in myself. I had to invest in myself. I had to take big risks in myself. Going to college, paying for college was a huge risk. It was amounts of money my family didn't have. It was going to fall 100% on me at all times, and so I knew I would believe in me. I would invest in me. I would do what it took to get to where I wanted to go and to get to the next step. And I just continued to do that in my life.
Mm.
Emergency medicine is awesome. I was just working the other night, and almost every day, the doctors and nurses in this country literally go home and they have made a giant difference in someone's life, if not actually saved somebody's life. That's a huge responsibility. Don't get
Yes,
me
it
wrong.
is.
It is a lot of pressure. Bad things happen and sometimes we lose lives. But many people go through an entire lifetime doing the best they can and they can't say that. They don't get that experience.
Right.
What an amazing privilege to be able to do that over and over and over again.
Uh, and it is. It really is. So your siblings, did they go to college? And
I one brother did go to college, and he is a chemical engineer today, and two of my other siblings did not.
now you were working with veterans. Were you ever in the military?
I was never in the military. No,
Okay. All right. And so you're also a woman in this space. Things are different now. My mother was so old school. She goes, well, the boys are supposed to be the doctors and the girls are supposed to be the nurses. And I'm like, Mama, that's not what's happening right now. It's a lot different. There's a lot of responsibility to mentor and mold the next generation of healthcare providers. And I know that you guys really took a beating during COVID, mentally, physically, financially. You were disrespected, discredited, but you still hung in there. What would you tell a person or that's looking to go into medicine right now? What would you say to encourage them to take that as their field of study?
look, if you want to go into medicine, you should go into medicine. I don't I don't think anybody goes into it anymore. I think COVID actually opened our eyes to what it takes to be in medicine. There was a time where people went into medicine because it was a high status field and you could make a good living, and that was their main motivation. I think COVID made it super clear that it was not going to be glamorous and you were going to have to risk your life and you were going to have to believe and have more passion to do that job than just doing it because it was a good paycheck. So if there's somebody wanting to go into it right now, I think they're doing it with their eyes wide open and they should continue to do that. You do have to believe that you can do it and if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're what we need in medicine. We need more women, we need more people of color, we need people from all kinds of backgrounds. We need medicine to represent the people that they're taking care of. So I welcome more people into medicine, but you will always carry a big responsibility. So you definitely have to be somebody that's willing to shoulder that responsibility and to be a role model for the entire profession. When I see a patient, I'm reflecting not just the hospital I'm working for. I'm representing every single woman doctor in the whole world. I'm representing the whole field of medicine. Patients see us as representing medicine, even though we have very little control over a lot of the things that happen in medicine. And so we have to shoulder that and really do it in a responsible, graceful way with the patients and just focus on the patients.
But also, you have to have a sense of balance, a
Mhm.
sense of, uh,
Mhm.
you know, personal balance.
Yeah.
And the struggle is real.
Yeah.
you know, you're working 12, 14 hours, you maybe get a couple hours sleep, you back 12, 14 hours again. What do you do to offload that? How do you keep yourself balanced?
So I'm fortunate that I am at a later stage in my medical career than I was in the beginning. So in the beginning, when you're becoming a doctor, you don't have a lot of choice. You are working 80-hour work weeks. I would like your brains to know that when people graduate medical school, which is already 4 years after they've finished a 4-year college degree, they go into what's called a residency. And that's at least 3 years, up to 7 years, where they are working 80 or more hours a week, day in and day out, to train in the specialty that they want to go into. And when you add up the fact that they are working all those hours, they're actually being paid very low wages, pretty much minimum wage for what they're doing. So the people that do it are really doing it out of an immense sense of dedication. These are the smartest, most creative people in the world, but they do fall out of balance. Um, the world is different now for women, but it's only slowly changing. When I was a resident, I was the first resident in my program to have a child. I was the first resident in my program to have to nurse a child while doing 24-hour, 36-hour shifts in the intensive care unit. And so you have to be willing to just be the first at a lot of things, break a lot of barriers, and hope that it opens the door a little bit for those coming behind you. But even now, it's 27 years after I had that first child in residency. Um, I work in huge hospital systems as well as small hospital systems. And in one of the biggest campuses I work that covers 2 miles of buildings, they have one nursing room on the whole campus. So if you're in a building a mile away, you are somehow supposed to figure out how to get to that one nursing room to pump for your child and return to work. And to do that several times during a 12-hour shift, because that's how the female body works when it's nursing. So there's a giant disconnect between the needs of the healthcare workforce and the needs of patient care. The
But that's
majority of
changing.
nurses in healthcare are women, so we need to figure out how
Well,
to
it's
take care of women.
2024. Have you seen? It's a revolution. I don't know if you got the email, honey, but we are on fire right now. There hasn't been this much momentum from women since we burned our bras. and
Yes, nice to see.
we're excited. So there's going to be some change there. There's going to be some compassion. There's going to be more facilities, and men are gravitating to this as well. They're tired. They really understand that everything on this planet has come through a uterus. And so now they're learning to appreciate that in a different kind of way. So now you are not only working, but you also have a great cause and a great mission. You are helping people globally and in rural areas. Tell us a little bit about that experience. It lights you up. Your face just smiles.
Yeah. So, like I said, look, it's a privilege to be now at this later stage in my career. And yes, I could have just wound down and said, okay, let's plan for retirement. But I saw the changes that came with COVID-19. I saw the immense potential for us to take our new embrace of telehealth and its capacity to reach people who are isolated from a hospital. So during COVID-19, people were asked not to go to the hospitals. Hospitals were closed. They couldn't travel. They couldn't do a lot of things. So we had to figure out how to reach people. And in doing that, we reached not only the same people we always reached, we reached a whole population of people that were never able to access us before. People that didn't have transportation, people that had mobility problems, people that were in rural communities that don't even have a pharmacy. It brought us into connection with a whole new group of people that we were just not even seeing before. And I saw that power and that potential. And I said, okay, can this be my next act? Look, I have all of this. Like I said, medicine is filled with people that just study decade after decade after decade and are just always building expertise on top of expertise. Can I take all of that I've built and leverage this to really help everybody? 84% of the world's population live in low and low middle income countries. That doesn't include America. America's in the 16% that is in high income countries. 78% of all the doctors in the world are working in those 16% high income countries. And even though there's we're like, all right, we should have abundance. We should have the most doctors. We should have the best healthcare. Well, guess what? Even within that high income country, healthcare is hidden even more into just a little urban center with a big hospital system that has all the resources, and there's still tons of people left out, and they're still in the same place as the 84% of the world that's living in the low and low middle income countries.
Mhm.
So I said, hey, why don't we take telehealth and connect these people? Why don't we take those 78% of the doctors working and have them just give 2 hours of their time once a year to global telehealth? And we can provide healthcare to people all over the world. If only 1% of those doctors did that, we would have 700 doctor hours every day to care
Wow,
for people across the globe. That can change the world.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. That's impactful and that's insightful. So now how are you getting your colleagues to get on board? Because telehealth right now, I'm with one of those doctors, 16%. I've got great insurance, thank goodness. Um, I'm able to pay my copay. I'm in relatively good health. But again, my neighbor down the street broke my heart. She's on Medi-Cal and she's in a wheelchair that's got three wheels. She can't get the help that she needs. Took her to the pharmacy and she asked could she get a portion or a part of her prescription because she couldn't pay for her prescription. That it's ridiculous. And we supposedly live in the greatest country in the world with the greatest advancements, but there are the haves and the have-nots. How are you getting your colleagues on board to support you in this effort to create global telehealth?
This is going to sound surprising, perhaps, to some of your brains, perhaps not. Doctors want to do this work, nurses want to do this work, therapists want to do this work. This is what they went into healthcare for in the first place. The healthcare system, the structure that exists, is driven and controlled by economic drivers and profit. And that is not the doctors. As a matter of fact, most of them feel trapped. They are like indentured servants that feel trapped in a system that does not get them what they want. They don't feel like they're living lives of purpose. And even worse, at record numbers now, post COVID, doctors are leaving medicine. People that have already invested 20 years of education and expertise in becoming good at something are walking away because they can't do what lights them up, what makes them feel like they're doing good work in the world. Sure,
And
everybody
when,
wants to be paid, right? You got to send your kids to school too. You got to have a roof over your head. But there's a real balance, and doctors want this. We surveyed
you
over
know what?
250 doctors, and 60% of them said they would do this for free.
What really breaks my heart is they're being prosecuted for a variety of different things. We're not even going to talk about women's right to choose. That's a whole different thing. But I'm just saying, here in California, I don't know, maybe 6 months, a year ago, a nurse. It was the first time I had ever seen a nurse be prosecuted for malpractice. And I was at the hospital last night before our interview today, and I was just looking around and I was thinking, and I said, I'm gonna talk to Dr. T and let me just kind of observe what's going on in here. The nurses, with all due respect to you, did more than the doctor. Changed the bedpan, took the person there, checked their vitals, put all the information in, gave the injection. There was such a liability, and the amount of technology is unbelievable that they are responsible for. And this person, again, there's no justification for what happened. But I am sure, down to my core, that it was an accident. Medicine is not a perfect science. You do the very best that you can with that. And this person, I'm sure, took the best care that they could. And now they're going to go to prison for that. That is a deterrent. That is definitely a deterrent. And the amount of, like I said, during COVID, the amount of disrespect that you receive. But then there are still, like you said, 60% of doctors saying, look, let me do what I love to do, and that is to help save a person's life. I know my daughter had to have a surgery one time, and the doctor um, said, "Can I hypnotize her before I do the surgery?" I was like, "What?" There was an aura and an energy around this man that was undeniable. It was a force, and he would go into underprivileged areas or even third world countries and hypnotize the children before, because they didn't have anesthesia. They didn't have the medical instruments and technology that we have now. So again, thank you and thank your colleagues for doing that. What countries are you tapping into, and what areas are you working for, and here, even in the United States?
Yeah. No, thanks for those questions. So the Healthcare Alliance for an Equitable World is my company, and currently we do projects in the Philippines. We are starting a project in Uganda and Kenya. So Western Kenya, Eastern Uganda, they're right across the border from each other, and it's an area that gets a lot of refugees of war from the neighboring countries in Africa. And we're currently also developing a project in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. So, like other countries, there are more well resourced areas of the country, like the big city, Johannesburg, but then you have your small rural places like the Eastern Cape with far fewer resources and far fewer doctors. So, those are the places we're targeting, whether it's in the United States or it's globally. We're really trying to reach the people that need this the most.
But the infrastructure there, the technology as far as electricity, the load sharing, the lack of technology when it comes to computers and access to that, you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah. The good news is tech companies have been ahead of us for a while. And I think COVID moved us ahead even further, at least a decade. And so, even in the most rural areas, for instance, of the Amazon, I just spoke to a doctor down in the Amazon that does missions into very rural clinic in very rural villages in the Amazon. And even those places, you can get a cellular signal. So you may not get full Wi-Fi like we're used to our computer and we lose it when our Wi-Fi goes down at home, but you can at least get a cellular signal. And with a cellular signal, we have technologies like Zoom, and then we have more secure technologies that are also being developed by tech companies to connect people by video. And you can save a life with a phone and a video. A surgeon can get on a phone and guide a brain surgeon. You talk about brain surgeon. A brain surgeon can, and this has happened, get on a phone with a local surgeon in a rural place and help them carry out a life-saving surgery, such as decompressing a brain that is bleeding and the patients would otherwise die. You can do that. And so we're lucky that we're in a time where tech is at a place, and in most of the world, people have some sort of cellular service. Economies in poor areas have learned how to give people prepaid self service. So, cell services are available, but we partner with other organizations. Sometimes we have a jaded view of companies, and there are companies we should have a jaded view of. But there are other companies that do want to do good work. So we partner with other companies
Like
that,
big pharma, because you're going to
yes,
need medication.
yes. So we partner with companies to put in solar in our rural villages so that they have reliable electricity to be on a laptop. We partner with tech companies to provide an electronic medical record and the access to do a Zoom call like this with a patient. So we partner with people and we bring this technology to places. That's going to have a huge impact, not just on healthcare, where they connect to us, but they're also connecting these folks to their local community hospitals, hospitals that they weren't connected to before. We're connecting boarding schools that have a nurse to a hospital an hour away in a way that they weren't connected before. So, building actually the local healthcare infrastructure and not necessarily making them dependent on having doctors on telehealth, but having that even as an addition. I mean, I really think we're creating the world-class healthcare of the future. We just happen to be doing it in low middle income places.
Right. And again, with the benefit and the incorporation of artificial intelligence, you're able to keep all this information stored in a database as a resource. So, in case a doctor is not available, these questions can be answered, these videos can be viewed, this interaction can occur regardless. You
Can I
talked
just
about the
say to your brains, by no means am I suggesting that telehealth medicine should replace in-person medicine.
oh,
There
okay.
are always going to be things that should happen in person, but what it's going to do is take away the things that don't have to happen in person so that there's more resources when you do need to get there in person. Imagine going to the ER and the only thing that's happening in the ER are life threatening emergencies. There wouldn't be a 6-hour wait outside because those things could be taken care of by telehealth or in a different environment. So it really isn't I'm not suggesting that this will replace in-person healthcare, but it will extend in-person healthcare and make it better.
People are apprehensive, Dr. T. Uh, they're saying, it's a person over the phone. They're not able to check my vitals. They want that warm fuzzy. They want you. Uh, and I'll be 100% transparent. I had to get used to a nurse practitioner. I wanted somebody with that DR in front of their name. But what I found is that the nurse practitioner had a little bit more time, was a little bit, not, I'm not saying was more eager, but additionally eager to really ask the questions, allow me to answer them, maybe run a few more tests that this doctor that I've been seeing forever that comes in for 15, 20 minutes wasn't able to do. Not maybe prove herself, but just had that extra ability and things. So telemedicine and telehealth, don't turn your nose up to it, brains. You can call because they'll say, do you want a video visit? And now I'm like, I'm more open to it. So it's educating people as well as to the services that you provide. Because and I'm talking about here in the United States, not, I'm sure that they're very appreciative in other countries, but here in the United States, we've got a certain standard that we want. We want to be able to go in and want the nice, receptionist there to tick the boxes and all that. But sometimes you just got to get the work done.
Well, I'll say this much. You're not forced to do this, right? So you said before, luckily you and I are part of these very small percentage of people that have great insurance. We have money that is discretional. We have transportation. We can have a choice, right? Now, I'm not suggesting this is meant to force people that don't have a choice to accept it. But what I do find is that people that can't travel, I mean, we have patients that are home because they're the only caregiver for a family member that has dementia or whatever. They can't travel. They are so grateful that you are willing to come into their home. They're welcoming us into their home. And that's a little shocking even for the doctors on the other end, right? They're not used to that. They're used to the patient coming to them and being in their space and being in control of everything. But this
Mm-hmm.
changes that dynamic. The patient is in control. They're in their home. You have to figure out how to work with them. You get a whole new insight into those things they call the social determinants of health. And you actually have to deal with those things in real time to get the patient care. You can't just say, go to the pharmacy and pick up this medication because they can't. So now you have to work with them and say, okay, what pharmacy is near you? You can't come to my pharmacy, but what pharmacy is near you? You don't have a ride to that pharmacy. How can we get you that medication? Do we have to mail it to you? What do we need to do? It forces us, it's very uncomfortable, I'm going to tell you, into a different place where we have to work with the patient in their own space. And for the right people, for the doctors that I work with, that is not a deterrent. They are happy and excited because they are lifelong learners. They want to know how things work and how they can help people. They love changing what they're so used to and personalizing it for that situation because it's more tools. It makes them better. It makes them better as healers. It makes them better as physicians, makes them better at people. So
Well, I mean, this is the house call of the 22nd century.
it is.
You know, the doctor used to come with the black bag and knock on the door, and you'd lay there in your bed on your white sheets, and they would take care of you. Now it is with technology. So don't fear the unknown. Take the opportunity to explore it, question it, ask your doctor questions. This might be, the doctor might be in a more relaxed setting. Again, you might be able to get that extra 30 minutes, 45 minutes that you weren't able to get when they're, checking people in at the front desk, when there are 45 people in the emergency room. I've been there before in the emergency room, and I've looked around and I'm like, are they ever going to call me? And you got to prioritize. You got to prioritize. So let's ask you some fun facts. Okay.
Yay.
Okay. That's what I like to do. If you were not a physician, something whimsical, what in the world would you be doing with your life? What would you like to do?
If I wasn't a physician, I would have spent some part of my life being an athlete. I love playing sports and being on teams. So I think I could have done that for a period of time. But of course, you age out of that kind of fast and you get injured and all of that stuff happens. I would
Oh,
still be a mama. I love being a mama to my kids. I would be a gardener. I love gardening. I would have a farm and a garden and animals and spend a lot of time out in nature.
that might be your third act. You never know. You never know. How many children do you have?
Free,
You have three. What's the genders?
all girls.
All girls. What are you pouring into those young women?
What am I saying that again,
What are you
please?
pouring into them as far
Oh,
as encouragement and motivation, life structure,
wow.
drive? What are you saying to them?
Well, I have had my three children almost in three different generations. So my oldest is 27 and my youngest is 10. So they have lived. They belong to three different generations in our world. So I definitely pour different things into them at different times. I believe they've all had a different mama because of that spacing. But I have to tell you that when my oldest was no longer at home and she was out in the world and making her way in the world, I learned a lot about what it takes to be a mentor and to actually create change. I thought all the things I was doing, becoming a doctor, having my children while I was a doctor, doing both, nursing them, just kind of making my own path. I thought that was enough. And I learned when my daughter went out into the world that she was running into the same discrimination, the same barriers, the same sexism, and the same discrimination that I was, that nothing had actually changed out in the rest of the world. Just because I thought I was showing them a different way, the
Right.
rest of the world hadn't changed. And so that was a wake up call. You should show first of all, children do what they see and they don't do what you tell them. So you have to spend a lot of time thinking about what they see.
Absolutely.
But we have to also really dig deep and start creating the change we want for the next generation because somebody else is not going to come along and do it.
They're not, or they're going to discombobulate it and again, when the world teaches your child, I tell people, you don't want to tell them about sex. You don't want to tell them about finance. You don't want to tell them about religion or whatever, but you allow the world to tell them.
Woo.
And that's strange. I see on the back of your wall back there, it looks like a doll. And what is that? With the next to
So
the monkey. What is that? What does that represent?
so that is a Jane Goodall Barbie doll. Uh,
Oh, wow.
Jane Goodall researched chimpanzees in
Hmm.
Gombe. Um, Back when I was just a little girl, she was definitely one of the first mentors to me. Jane doesn't know me, never knew she was mentoring me. But when I read Jane's story about how she went as a teenage girl into Africa and lived in the jungle with herself and just, camera crew and learned how to just sit quietly among the chimpanzees and record what they were doing and how that grew into revolutionary insights about primates, revolutionary insights about how we need to interact with our environment and the animals in our environment. And
Hmm.
really how not easy that was. What she had to believe in and give up and the dangers she had to face. I do believe Jane had a very strong and powerful influence on me. And if Jane or any of your brains know Jane, Jane is a woman in her 90s now. And I really want, before Jane is no longer with us, for her to know that she is part of my motivation.
Well, I'm going to see if I can get this interview to her. I don't know how, but again, we can speak it into existence.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
That is
Yes.
good. If you were an appliance in the kitchen, Dr. T, what appliance would you be?
Appliance in the kitchen. That's a tough one. Ooh. Um, hmm. What appliance in the kitchen am I? I don't know. I feel like blenders are super useful, but they chop things up, so that's definitely not me.
Well, they bring it all together too. They create something new and
That is
innovative.
true. Just the chopping things up as a doctor just feels strange.
I
Um,
know. Today, I think I'm going to be the spice grinder. So I want to
oh,
chop some stuff up too, but I want to add a little flavor to it,
I like
you
that.
know? So I like to do that. If you could time travel, go back to the past, stay here in the present, or project to the future, where would you land?
I'm definitely gonna stay right here.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
um, I have learned and spent a lot of time learning what it takes to not only be happy, but fulfilled and empowered. And what it takes is to live in the present. Living in the past brings us a lot of grief and anxiety.
mhm,
Um, and living in the future, we do a lot of that in our minds. Humans are amazing at spending most of their living day not being in the present, but imagining the past or the
right,
future.
absolutely.
And I would live right here because I know that every moment of every day we're actually creating the future. So whatever future you saw isn't actually necessarily what's going to happen because
Absolutely.
every single one of us is changing the future every minute of every day.
What would you say if you had a conversation with a 25-year-old Kim Tranquada?
Me at 25,
Yeah.
um, I probably just listen to her, see if I can remember all the things you forget as you grow older. And I would say, Kim, you are enough. You got this. Don't worry. You will you will get to a lot of places where you think you're hit a wall, but if you want it, you can create it. So just believe in yourself and try to enjoy the road ahead.
That's beautiful. What did your father think of you becoming a physician?
My dad was very proud. He did pass away right before COVID. He was definitely very proud. He always encouraged me. He said, "You can do anything you put your mind to." Um, and we were not a super, I would say, deep talker kind of family. We're an immigrant family. I think a lot of immigrants can relate that, you just kind of work and you put your head down, you get business done, but always encouraged me. Um, and, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I had a strong, caring male personality in my life growing up.
What would you say to a young woman in a third world country um, that is aspiring to do some of the things that you've done and to just take the bull by the horns and run with it? What would you say to her to encourage her?
She probably does needs very little encouragement for me because I'm gonna tell you, people that have hopes and aspirations and know what it's like to struggle are an unbeatable force because they know what it's like to struggle and overcome odds and to not worry about your safety and your comfort, how to just go for it. I think about people in refugee camps that are imagining a different future. Um, there are many people who are the next, not just physician, but next president, next leader, next visionary in those places. And it's our job to make sure they get to live up to that potential because it's going to make the world freaking wonderful.
Absolutely. And in closing, Dr. T, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to
Oh,
be?
my legacy. My legacy should be that I really tried to make the world better for the next generation and make it inclusive for the next generation, inclusive of people of different ethnic identities, inclusive of people with different gender identities, inclusive of people with different abilities. I mean, we live in a fantastic time where we have technology that can really include people, and we need to make sure we're using it to include them rather than exclude them. And I think it just brings us more gifts. The more people we include, the more we get to live in a world that's actually peaceful. You want to end war? Include people, make them uplifted, let them live lives of full potential, and then they don't have a reason to have war.
Yeah, exactly. And allow them to make the choice of if, you know, you can agree to disagree and not be disagreeable. That's how
Yeah.
we learn, you know? That's exactly how we learn. So thank you so much for being here with us. You have just been a wealth of information, a healing source. I wish you uh, great success with everything that you're doing. Doctors, I've got tons of doctors, nurses. Let me get you guys connected so that you can be a part of this revolutionary change for global healing, for global health. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you. If they want to follow you, of course, on social media, they want to get
Yeah.
involved, have a consultation. How do they reach out?
Boy, I would love to welcome anybody to be part of this mission. We can and will include everyone because everyone's got a part. So, first, one stop shop, you can go to https haew.org, and that has links to all of our other wonderful content. There is a podcast called Voices of Healthcare Equity, and we talk to people all over the globe doing great work in health equity. And you can reach me at Dr. T, Dr. period T at haew.org. And I really look forward to welcome you to our community.
Well, brains, reach out and embrace somebody, you know, gauge your temperature, feel your pulse, take a few deep breaths, just relax, love on somebody, extend a hand, go out to your neighbors and cut the grass, take the trash out, watch the kid. It's the little things. Each one teaches one. That's going to make the world a better place. In addition to that, I got some homework for you. This is the assignment. Go in and like, love, share, and subscribe. Okay? Follow Dr. T and me. Share this with a friend. Share this with other colleagues. There's anything, any resources that you may have. You may have a gift. You might be a retired physician. looking for something to do. Connect with her. Thank you so much, Dr. T. You are the best.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to talk with your brains.
All right. My brains, we love you.